are literally shaping the planet.
Purpose is the only pathway to a regenerative future.
We have a choice to stay with the status quo or to change.
What is the point of trying to be just resilient when we can actually innovate?
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody, welcome to the evening edition of Shadow Ventures. This is quite the opportunity. I just want to thank KP and the entire team for providing me, a half hour to talk about something that I'm not selling. Imagine that. But what it is selling is an idea, and these ideas are important. Just got back from a trip to Greece, actually, on behalf of the Prime Minister of Greece, to actually talk exactly about what the next 28 minutes or so is going to be about, which is about how does an industry like ours, how do we not just survive? How do we not just think of new normals and new ways of working, but how do we really embrace, in a way, this age of the pandemic? SARS opened up its ugly head back in 2003. We still don't have a vaccine. This is only the latest strain of COVID-19. So if you start taking a look at the history of this means that we're involved with waves and waves and waves of things that we just can't anticipate. They may not be as strong, they could be stronger than what we're dealing with right now. But one thing's for certain, never in the history of the planet Earth has the entire world shut down economically. This is fascinating. It's like having a front row seat the times of the future. We'll look back and sing songs of the glory of our past, right? But we are in a very, very strange space. Just flying to Greece and taking enough COVID tests and being negative 50 times that I'm probably the most COVID-free person on the planet. What was interesting was hearing another perspective, but a lot of things the same about how to open up a country. So what you're going to hear on this particular session is about how to do that. I just flew in this morning from Oklahoma City back here to Memphis, having given a half-hour special for CNBC, which will be launched on October 31st, and it will run as a weekend show, talking about exactly what you see here, which is we are into the world not of opinion. It's not like, well, Paul says it, or the president says this, or someone says this, so it must be true. It was about getting back to science data and realizing that what the world that we're in right now is all about. How do we design ourselves out of this mess? Design is going to be the major piece of how we do this, not just the vaccines, in whatever format they're going to be, because there's not just going to be one. It's not about, wearing the latest mask. It's not about, doing all the social distancing, which in indoor situations, scientifically, is ridiculous. So when you see people that are creating entire designs around lessening the amount of tables inside of a restaurant, that's all for naught. It may make people feel good, and that's also a criteria of design. So it's not that they're doing something wrong, just scientifically and data-wise, if you're going to get COVID, you're going to get COVID if you're in an indoor situation, no matter where you are. So social distancing, wearing masks indoors, still a good thing, but it's not going to solve the problem. So that's what this entire thing is about, because when we got shut down, at TDG, we are a real estate development firm, but we're very different from probably your typical one, only because we're run by industry professionals, not real estate people. Not that real estate people aren't professional, because I'm talking about the people that are pulling the buildings up out of the ground, architects, engineers, subcontractors, contractors, they're all on our team. Why? Because we're providing a very interesting way of taking a look at urban environments and repositioning them in a way where they are getting to a point where they're more inclusive, where we use technologies to increase safety, security, and a measurable increased quality of life. So you can imagine with those three tenets, the three principles that we design our cities and campuses and neighborhoods for, and we scale them huge, one decision is sort of like a network effect. I'm not doing it for a building. I'm not doing it just for a series of buildings like a portfolio. I'm doing it for an environment that human beings have to have shelter, have to live their life, have to learn, and learn to live together. So with COVID, this was an amazing opportunity for our group to really put things under a microscope and not just test them, but use them, implement them. And one of the big things that really bugged me was this whole thing about social distancing. Most of our work is overseas. They use non-imperial measures, like feet and inches. They use the metric system. So how come the disease is going to know that if I'm in Europe and you're 2 meters apart, well, that is a lot better than being in the United States because that's only 6 feet apart. Who made this stuff up? I wondered. How ridiculous is that? Not that social distancing is ridiculous, but the way that we just put it down, saying 6 feet is it. Why? And I wanted to know why. I also wanted to know why, when you're talking about, even being in an airplane, having the middle seat is sort of like a convenience. But if that gets into the air system, this disease, what do you do with it? So we start to question a lot of this stuff and went right back to where everyone should go, which is some, not just thought leaders, but real scientific data. And what we found in the science was this. The successful infection rate of COVID-19 is a very simple but scary arithmetic algorithm for all intents and purposes, which is the exposure to the virus, how you get infected is based on time, meaning that breathing, it only takes 1,000 particles of COVID-19. It'll take you 50 minutes to get infected. Just talking, 5 minutes. Yelling or singing, 50 seconds. Do you start seeing the ratios? So when a person sneezes, 200 million particles go everywhere. Thus the reason why you wear a mask, okay? You're trying to lessen the amount of you infecting someone else, right? So that's the reason for doing that. It's not a freaking political statement. But this is what we learned. So this comes from the University of Massachusetts. Any environment that is enclosed with poor air circulation and a high density of people spells trouble. Let me say that again. Any environment that is enclosed, cars, airplanes, buildings, with poor air circulation, high density spells trouble. So I immediately focused in on poor air circulation, started to reimagine what does our mechanical systems look like? And voila, what happened? The CDC came out with a whole series of studies of what happened at the very beginning stages of when COVID was starting to be discovered here in the US. So from late January into early February, this one restaurant, they started to see how an affected person that you see here, A1, started to infect other people, but not all at the same time. Isn't that interesting? Because this is an aerosol. This is an aerosol, airborne disease, which means that when you have existing mechanical systems like we do now, and that air is pushed through vents that then come out through a venting, right? A diffuser for all intents and purposes, right? It blows either hot or cold air, depending on what you want the air to be conditioned to, in a certain direction. You can see from this map exactly where the air vents were, how it picked up the airborne particles and infected all of those people. But look at the other side of the restaurant. This is the beauty of how we design our mechanical systems. The number one, and I do mean this, the number one complaint to facility managers worldwide is that it's too hot or it's too cold. Meaning that from the bedroom to the ballroom, we have conditioned space that is not ambient, meaning that it's not evenly distributed with the temperature, but we try our hardest by blowing that air in there, right? So this was one example that we saw. The other one is a open office design, cubicles. Very, very similar type of thing happened here. Someone got sick, and in over a period of time, 94 people were in this particular office. 92 of them became sick because the air ventilation system was pushing that air in those directions. You also understand that, when you feel that it's too hot or it's too cold, if you move to a different part of the room, usually you're okay, right? Or sometimes, like if you're at a restaurant, a waiter will come over and, hopefully change the direction or whatever. But what we started to learn about these two examples was like, well, wait a second. This means that when we are dealing with our thermostats, right, and we're saying that we want it to be 72 degrees Fahrenheit, how that then affects the air handling unit that's pulling in fresh air, we need to start taking a look at that air and sterilizing it, at least giving ourselves a chance, right? Because the contaminants are humans inside of that conditioned space. So the air is going to be fine either through ionization or UV, right? Those are the two methodologies that are affordable and being done right now, right? So you have the sanitized air being blown into a space. And the thing is, we are still designing our mechanical systems like we have our knuckles dragging on the ground, because it's either all on or it's all off. You understand that, right? Because we have dampers or VAV boxes that will go either all on or all off. But do you know that those things are designed for incremental ways of doing like 32 degrees in this run of this mechanical duct and maybe 64 degrees over here, so that we can start to manage the air? But we don't do that. Why? Well, because mechanical systems are done. Boom, checklist, let's get out of the building. Right? Now we have a bigger responsibility, industry. We've got to start rethinking this and reimagining this. And the number one thing that we found that not only if that you're being exposed to something that's going to get people very sick, but we're perpetuating that with the way that we're designing our buildings. Even if you were 50 feet away, a low dose of the virus in the air over a sustained period of time is enough to cause infection. That's why this is the scariest disease. It's not because it's so lethal that everyone gets it, but it's the unknown about how each individual is going to be reacting to that. So do you want to be the test guinea pig on that? I don't think so. So this is why, as an industry, we have to start thinking very, very small. And one of the things we did was that we went ahead and did a study of, I'd say right now, I think we have about 25 different cities around the U.S. in particular. And we had some people go out to do a field survey. I wanted to know where the fresh air intakes were. The fresh air intakes that blow air into the air handling units, where are they? Do you know that the majority of our fresh air intakes are at street level in downtown dense environments? And you think that you're getting tired because you had a good lunch. No, you're slowly being poisoned with all of the exhaust from all the vehicles at street level that we're sucking into our buildings. What are we doing? So we had to rethink, number one, for our own buildings is put the fresh air intake where the fresh air is. Step one. That's something that we can all do like tomorrow. Rethink, re-see where you're pulling your air from, and we got a good first step. The second step is you've got to sterilize your air that's going to be conditioned, because that's at least setting yourself up for success. Not that you're going to be successful, but you set yourself up for it. So this is like an ecosystem. Number one, get fresh air in there. Number two, make sure the fresh air is sterilized. Then we had a number three. And the number three was really interesting to me, because this meant that we needed to look at data. And the data aspects of this are, we can take a look at building management systems, building automation systems, blah, blah, blah. And there's various degrees of what sort of data that we can capture. Hopefully it's authenticated and not, just, rounded up to the nearest whatever. And what we found was that there is very few systems out there that can handle a mechanical system with the precision that's necessary in order to get 72 degrees Fahrenheit ambiently, meaning throughout every square inch, up from a bedroom to a ballroom. And one of those that we found is in the UK. It's a new technology called OAIRO, the letter O, air, last letter O.com, right? Stupid name, great freaking technology. What this does is that over the past 6 years, they perfected this software system, right, to go into existing mechanical systems. Okay, so you don't have to get rid of your Train or your Carrier or your Honeywell or your JCI systems. You can keep those. This is like an overlay. And what this does is fascinating in my mind, in that it then takes the individual controls of each zone of how you're blowing air through a duct system, and it actually takes individual dampers, VAV boxes, and can actually now start to load balance how that air is blown through your ducts, creating a pressurization. You're not going to feel, it's not like pressurization inside of an airplane, where like your ears pop. Not that type. It's similar, but what it does is it confuses the air, not to blow it into a room, but to ambiently pressurize itself within the room. Now we got something. Because check this out, what that does means that you're not blowing air all the time. You're getting it to a point where it's at an equilibrium from the bedroom to the ballroom, that now all of a sudden you're not using as much energy. Right now, the amount of buildings, both in Dubai and the UK, that this has been installed with, are seeing upwards of 70% energy savings month on month, year on year. 70%. Now that opened my eyes. I went, well, that's good. The problem is they've been selling that. And up until COVID, indoor air quality was not a top priority to most people. Yeah, sick building, blah, 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 blah. You'd get into a conference like this and you get a couple of PowerPoints on it, maybe even a couple of slides, and that'd be about it, right? It was not a high priority. Now, oh yeah, it's a big priority. Why? Because we can open the economy worldwide if we do this right. So the way that this also works is not just giving you ambient temperature, but you're not blowing air. Because the way that the air moves, it confuses the particles on where to go. It doesn't have a directional. It's not being blown like a kite in the wind. What this does is that it confuses things so that if a person talks, breathes, or actually yells loudly, your particles will not go more than 20 centimeters off your face and drop 90 degrees straight down onto a surface. Holy cow. Now all of a sudden we got something. Now we have something to sell, and that's why the aero product, in my opinion, is going to be a huge hit coming out of this fog of war that we call COVID. Right? So we've also then taken a look at what else can we do to enhance that process, and we've been introduced to contact tracing, but not to the general public. That gets into weird ACLU and privacy issues, and I'll probably have a riot on my street if I did that, right? Because or cancel me. Right? No, we're not doing that. What we're doing is going to individual private companies. Like the NBA, like the NHL, like Major League Baseball, like Hollywood. What was launched last night was to plan to open up Hollywood based upon the contact tracing tool called Cassandra. It's underneath a thing called the COVID film certification system that has compliance officers that are going out to TV productions and film productions in order to see, do they have the proper PPE and do they have the Cassandra products so that they can show that they've put their information in case there's ever an outbreak. This is actually, which is interesting for our industry to listen and learn. This is being driven by legal and also the insurance companies, because they're saying that is the standard of practice that we have to see, so that if someone gets sick and dies and their family sues you, you've at least put a risk mitigation system in place. Remember that, contractors. You're going to be held to a higher standard. It's going to be the same thing like you don't have a first aid kit on site. You don't have a COVID, PPE kit on site. That's going to be the same level of argument. And don't be surprised, because we're a very litigious industry, right? That they're going to look at something like Hollywood and say, well, they did it. Why didn't you do it? So this is why we're very hot on what contact tracing can do. If you do have tests like me, and it's within a certain amount of time, you're also given a green passport. So we're expecting right now and have implemented a number of different food and beverage and retail shops that actually have a QR code reader, so that when you go through that particular doorway, it goes boop, boop, and it's sort of like a boarding pass scan onto an airplane, right? But here's the key. You're able to trust that everyone else inside of that room has already passed a COVID test negatively within a certain amount of time, an hour, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever that establishment wants that to be. You do not have to be scared. I was in my local Kroger, the supermarket, just about 2 months ago, and I was in the fast food section where I heard this loud sneeze, like one of those hairy sneezes some people do every once in a while, and it was like an aisle or two over. I swear it was like someone set off a bomb. People left their baskets and just ran out of the damn supermarket. I'm going, is that our new normal? I don't think so. So that's why when we're seeing tools like this, like having a green passport, almost like a boarding pass to get into these different establishments, and you can trust that the other person doesn't have it, you're actually going to have a good time. You're actually now starting to open up economies. You're starting to have people trust the other people, but more importantly, things with like Aero, you're now able to trust the building. So our job as an industry is to create that trust network. This idea that we have designed to help us. And here's an architectural firm in San Francisco that actually has a really good idea, not based so much on the science, but based upon the perception of what people need. But here's the problem. These people are F&B designers. So you can see pre-virus occupancy with this particular one, where the seating count is for 84 people, right? With about 18 employees. All of their business models are based upon that ratio. Look at what happens when you have to do social distancing, which I told you is ridiculous, but people want to feel safe. They don't trust each other. So you start to see why the data and those tools become very important. That if you see that that this restaurant is green passport enabled, you're going to go back to the pre-virus occupancy with your business model and actually make money, not at 27 seats with 6 employees where I don't even think you're making money. Plus, they have this idea that you see out on the street at the bottom of that particular graphic, Bryant Street. Those are tables. Guess what? Those tables have to now have a permit. And those permits are being given by Mrs. McGillicuddy working on a 386 computer using Windows 95 because she has to work from home. Good luck with that. So you see this cascading effect of going, this looks good, but business-wise, this is sick. I mean, look at this one. Beautiful design of this place down on Bryant Street, right? It's supposed to open up this summer. 113 seats, but down to 32. And that's hoping that they get the 8 exterior seats granted in with a permit, right? So again, we're trying as designers our best to rethink and repurpose, but we manage space, and the space has criteria on there that, according to perception, not science and technology, but perception, is killing an industry. It's one of these things where I get frustrated because I get it. I think you all get it, but trying to get everyone to sort of say, here's where we need to go is difficult. And we all know that from startup land and tech as well. But I'm here to say tonight that a lot of these pre-virus occupancies can come back quicker than we ever expected without a vaccine. We just have to be smart about it, about getting people into an conditioned space that limits the amount of airflow so that we're creating a safe and healthy environment. Number one, that creates a trust network between people immediately. The trust gains even more and more and more enthusiasm over time when everyone in there has a green passport. Yeah, I passed my test. Fine. I can have my freaking mask down. And then number 3, we're also in a period that if someone does get sick, the contact tracing tools that are privately implemented are doing great. Not just good, but great. You can capture things earlier because you have the accurate information. You're not dancing around with, privacy issue, this thing and that thing, because it's all run through HR departments. And this is how you open up a business. This is how you open up a city. This is how you open up an economy. So science, data, and all these stuffs led us to reimagine one of our projects, which was the most booming city in the United States based on permits pulled and cranes in work, Nashville, Tennessee. We are putting in place now a repositioning of a special economic zone called an opportunity zone, right on the Cumberland River. Right smack in the middle of this property is Nissan Stadium, where the Tennessee Titans play NFL football. That stadium is up for refurbishment in order to host the Super Bowl in a few years. But we took the control of the entire area and said, well, wouldn't it be really cool if we can create something that's not the WHO? And I'm not saying the WHO, that the bad people or anything else, it's just that the system's broken, right? So what we're doing is taking a privatized approach with some of the most leading institutions of both research and whatnot, led by Vanderbilt University, by the way, for this idea called World Healthcare City. And what this concept is to take this entire area from the lower downtown, which is called the Gulch, all the way up through Honky Tonk Row, which is Broadway, and North 2nd Avenue, and bring it all the way up towards the I-64 and I-65 interchange. Sorry, I-24 and I-65 interchange. It's about 850 acres. It is a fantastic site for so many different reasons, but we're actually creating this as a city within a city. Everything in here is a no car zone, no truck zone. Anything with a combustion engine is not allowed in here. You have to be part of our transportation system. It's all based upon autonomous vehicle technologies. But we also found, and by the way, I can make this PowerPoint available to anyone, so I'll send it on over to Anastasia after this, and feel free to take a look at it. It's a fantastic project right now. We're using unbuilt architecture. We're working, negotiating with Taliesin for front yard rights, unbuilt structure that you see here that's going to be our General Assembly. We have some beautiful, literature work from the 60s based upon something on the Potomac that he wanted. But again, we have the Cumberland River. So we're going to bring back some of the past and a little bit of the future aesthetically. And we're just in love with how this is going to work because it will be a COVID-free zone. So we have all of this now into a pattern. We have our projects really doing well. We do have some cool trends in the new normal. And this is what you can do for anyone that works in the field in AEC. Number one thing is eliminate uncertainty. If I'm a super and I'm in charge of like my electricians, and I'm going from site to site, if one site is loosey-goosey and no one's wearing any masks, and then I go to the next site and they got thermometers and masks and everything, it's not consistent. We have to eliminate the uncertainty. It also means that you establish a unified culture at that point, and this has to be industry-wide. This can't be just one firm doing it. Look at them and give them an award, at the ENR Awards. Who cares? This is the humans against an invisible enemy. This is humans against an invisible enemy. We all have to be unified in this, which means that our highest growth that we're seeing, that we're investing in and spending money in, is wearable tech, remote information and communications technologies. The hottest thing for our industry is that, and that alone. What we're also looking at is the world of visualization that can help us, not just the digital twins, which I think we're in a world right now where everyone gets it. And there's a lot of people that are calling things digital twins and trying to shove it down our throats, and it's not true. What we're using digital twins for are analysis, but also being able to come at it where the same type of data that you use should be treated like an element. It's not a bit or a byte, and it's not a 1 or a 0, and it's not just categorized somewhere. Data is like water. It's an element. It could be frozen, it could be liquid, or it could be steam. And that's what we're seeing with tools like this, like with Vim and others that are really starting to push the envelope about, where's reality, and where's digitalization. We are convinced that over time, that the digital of the built environment will be more valuable over time than the actual physical real estate itself. Let me say that one more time. A digital equivalent of the built environment will be more valuable over time than the actual physical real estate itself. So that means we have a parallel universe going on, and we see it because we're building it and we own it. We're not the type of developers that flip. We're owning that space. So that's why when I start to see the things like robotics, it really excites me. And this is just a small firm doing it in the Midwest for demolition, right? And then of course, we have our famous friends, over Boston Dynamics, but Spot. I mean, they've done some really, really cool stuff. Here, let me move this up. And just having to do everything from, being able to do some analysis. We've seen this doing punch list items, being able to do some site surveying. The future is just now. And I love the fact that some of our friends are involved with this, that are really pushing this, because these are all ideas of things that are pitched, like what happens at Shadow Ventures or what happens at the AC Hackathon, where a cool idea starts to become real. So again, I think that a lot of our investment is coming from this time that I call the COVID gym. Up until March, this country was booming with its economy. We didn't know what to do because we were busy just trying to get the work done. It was very tactical. We finally have a point now in our COVID gym to start flexing our muscles with the strategy as well. Understand that this stuff is out there, and let's start reimagining together what this future could really be. And so with that, what I'd like to do is just end with this, that we are in a data-driven, human-centric world. And if you can get your head around what that means, it's not just some babble, but we are data-driven, authentic data-driven, and we have to be human-centric in everything that we think about. This is no longer about the world of the automobile. It's no longer about the world of placing buildings in a street grid. I mean, how like 2017 is that? We have to start thinking about placement, and location is still there, but it doesn't need to be in a square or a rectangle. We have to rethink that. So when we're going through these processes, as you listen to the end of this, particular Shadow Ventures, conference this evening, keep the bigger story in focus at all times. Have your benchmarks, have your touchstones, and embrace the collision of industries. I think that's a big one. We have this, fear of not implementing from others, but because, well, we've done it like this all the time. After all, we build buildings. We're not, surgeons. You hear that a lot. Well, yeah, but at the same time, there's ways of colliding industries where mobility is going to be such a defining factor of how buildings operate and the shape of buildings. About, are we going to continue building garages when we don't need a car? What do we do with that space? What do we do with parking lots? These are going to be the challenges of our lifetime post-COVID. By the way, I like to call everything before COVID BC. It kind of sounds like really old, which gives us a shot, right? Because now we have this collision of industries, we can actually do something. And let's celebrate the absurdity of our industry. Stop beating ourselves up about it. This fresh air intake is a great example. The majority of buildings put the fresh air intake where all the pollution is. Why? Because we've always done it like that. Shut up and get back to work, right? Absurd. Let's start looking at the absurdity as opportunity. And finally, just on behalf of everyone at TDG, and again, thank you to Shadow Ventures. I hope that we do good for our world every day. Thank you.